So, as of recording this, I have just finished Fire Emblem Engage, and well, this is going to be a video of me just talking about it, telling you what I think. It's going to be rambly. I've literally just beat the game. I've got no notes, nothing, just going to talk about the experience on the whole. I don't have a capture card, so don't expect footage. It'll just be like screenshots from trailers and official art and such. So just deal with that. Put this on, a separate tab in the background and just listen if you want. I will cover spoilers, but that won't be until later in the video, and I will let you know when I do that. So if you don't want spoilers, obviously, watch until then, or, do what you will. Anyway, to save you some time, is the game good? Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good game. I had a hell of a lot of fun playing it. There were some points in the game that I didn't enjoy, and there are some things I dislike, but again, we'll talk about that. But overall, fantastic game. If you've played any other Fire Emblem games, you're absolutely going to love Engage. And if you've never played a Fire Emblem game and you've been interested, I think Engage is a good jumping in point if you want to get a feel of what really good Fire Emblem gameplay is like. Because that is this game's strong point, is the impeccable gameplay that it has. Like, it seems like it's a bit of a trend where the games with the best gameplay have worse or pretty mediocre stories. Looking at Fate's game that I truly despise because its story is abhorrent, has, in my opinion, some of the best gameplay in the series, at least of the games I've played, and Engage is absolutely up there with games like Fate's Conquest. And yeah, the gameplay is incredible. It is very, very deep, very complex, so much so that there are facets of it that I simply just didn't take advantage of, either because I didn't care or because I probably wasn't smart enough to. Like the smash mechanic, I basically never used it once. The Tower of Trials, never touched. So there are things that obviously I cannot comment on because I didn't engage, pardon the pun, with them. But in terms of like the core gameplay, incredible. And part of the reason why I say, even though I know I just mentioned it's really complex, it's still a great jumping in point for beginners who haven't played a Fire Emblem game before. Because of the lower movement within this game on the whole, it simplifies the base game state quite a bit because there's less variables to worry about because of higher movement. And so, if you want to get in, say you played Heroes and that was your introduction to Fire Emblem, this game will be a great follow-on. And if you haven't played Heroes and you've been interested, this is a great jumping in point, as I said. But the gameplay is genuinely incredible. The weapon triangle is back in some form or another. Technically, it isn't back. It's back in the form of the break mechanic, where, it is the weapon triangle, but it doesn't have the hit and avoid modifiers that we're used to from previous games, but still, it's back. There's no weapon durability in this game, probably why the gameplay feels pretty similar to Fate's. Again, another game without durability. That's not what point there is, but yeah, probably another reason why it feels similar. Map design, something that this game improves on from Three Houses, the previous game of the series, mainline game, because I guess Three Hopes technically fucking count. Didn't play Three Hopes, don't plan on it. Anyway, compared to Three Houses, I'd say the map design is a hell of a lot better. The maps are smaller to compensate for the reduced movement of units, but also they do not reuse maps. You never go back to an old map. Well, technically you do, but I'll cover that in the spoiler section later on. But yeah, because it'll be more story-oriented, that, I guess, so we'll cover that later. So there's no reused maps, unlike Three Houses, where they use a lot of the same maps multiple times, and it can get a bit repetitive. That's my biggest complaint with Three Houses. Map design, bit mediocre on the whole, but it makes sense given what they were working with. Engage, map design, really good for the most part. There are a few maps with objectives in them that, while were interesting and unique, I found a little bit tedious, especially one chapter in particular in the later part of the game. Chapter 22, I did not enjoy. I just found it kind of tedious, partly because of the story integration and just story of that part. Those two chapters, 21 22, I did not enjoy the story there. But again, we'll talk about that later. The gameplay is incredible. The units, the characters, they feel really good to use. Though, one thing I will say is units, if you aren't careful, will fall off very quickly, at least on hard mode. I don't know about normal. Merciless, I assume it's even worse. But units drop off really quickly if you aren't careful. For example, I was going to use a unit called Lapis. And then after 3 levels, she's a physical unit. After 3 levels, she'd leveled 3 magic and 2 speed. And I was like, yep, okay, we're not using her because she literally couldn't keep up. Yes, that was a bit of bad luck. But if you compare to other units that I, say, benched pretty early on, because one thing I will say is you don't have a lot of deployment slots in a lot of the chapters, especially in the early to mid game. Late game, it increases, you know, a bit more as you get more units and more emblem rings. I'm pretty sure that's the main reason why you get more deployment slots, is so you can use all of the emblem rings. You know, the main story gimmick, the main thing for this game. But yeah, units drop off pretty hard because enemies, at least in hard mode, and again, I assume even more so on Merciless, get strong pretty quick. And that, I think, was really good. It added, you know, more depth, more challenge. It was really interesting, but it did mean I had to, unfortunately, bench a lot of units that I thought would have been interesting. I did manage to bring one up to speed through taking advantage of arena and skirmishes to get them some levels, to get them back up to speed and make them, you know, a viable unit to use. And it's a very good thing that I did, because it ended up helping me out quite a bit. But that's by the by. The gameplay in this game is genuinely fantastic. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, it's, I'd probably say, like, second best in the series. I'd probably put Conquest at the top, followed by Engage, in my opinion. I haven't played every game in the series, obviously. I say obviously, but I haven't played every game in the series, so I can't, you know, rank every game. But for me, Engage has been the one that's been the second most fun to play in terms of, you know, gameplay, with Fates begrudgingly being at the top. Now, like I said, there are, in fact, I'll just make one other comment on gameplay. Like I said, there are things that I didn't touch on, like aspects of the game that I didn't really take full advantage of. Like, I never did, there's a feature where you can, you know, mess with engage weapons, like improve them and their stats and stuff because of the Terror Trials and such. I never touched that. I made bond rings, but I never used any of them, so I was actually just hindering myself for literally no reason for a good portion of the game, because I'm a bloody idiot. And I just didn't try to figure out, you know, to understand it. Proof I'm a bit stupid. I didn't do some of the mini games because, well, I didn't feel a need to. One thing I did feel, mainly because of my own idiocy, gold, especially in the early game, well, I say early game, mid game, felt really sparse. I felt like I had no gold to use in the mid game, mainly because I was a bit of an idiot and was a bit overzealous with the donation feature. Basically, a mechanic, I won't get into it. But yeah, I was a bit overzealous with that, I think, and that kind of held me back in the mid game in terms of gold. It didn't make too much of a difference, but I definitely felt it. Yeah, it was a bit rough. Yeah, minigames I didn't really touch. I fished once. I didn't do the Wyvern Ride. The fortune telling thing is there. I did it, and it was like, what the fuck is the point in this? It's just here, I guess. It's cool. Sure. Yeah, the flea market I didn't really use either. Yeah, so that's really all I've got to say, gameplay-wise. Stuff I didn't use, and it didn't really impact the gameplay too much. And also, bond frags, there was no shortage of bond fragments, like, at all. Which is another resource you need to manage in this game. I guess you could argue, well, I was going to say you could argue it's a replacement for weapon durability, but it isn't, because they're nothing even remotely fucking related. But, you know, it was a resource, and I basically never had a shortage of bond frags at any point. I felt I had a surplus at basically all times that I probably could have used more effectively than I did. Again, I'm an idiot. I didn't abuse it. Although, well, here's one thing I did do. I did abuse the game quite a bit. You can break the game pretty easily, especially on hard mode. I know it's... I don't think Merciless mode has been cracked just yet, but hard and normal, really easy to break. Like, really easy. Just look up one video on YouTube and you'll probably figure out how to do it. I managed to do it, and I'm a bit of an idiot, so... I've called myself an idiot quite a few times with this. Real good for a review of a strategy RPG, huh? Anyway, let's move on from that, and we'll move on to the story. I won't touch on spoilers just yet, but I'll transition into that in just a little bit. The story is, as you can have gathered from maybe some comments I made earlier, not the best. If you saw the trailers, you'll basically understand everything about this story for the most part. It is cheesy, comedically bad in certain aspects. There are characters that are overused to an egregious level, especially enemy characters, and it's just like, oh god, why? I want some more interesting enemies, more different enemies, instead of having the, I have been defeated. However, I cannot fall here, so I shall make my retreat, like 16 fucking times. Like, that's a bit of an over-exaggeration, but you get my point if you played the game. Specifically with the Four Hounds. Mild spoiler. What else? Story-wise, yeah, it's just kind of cringe. Definitely feels like Fates in that regard, that the story is not the focus at fucking all, and it shows because it's not very well written. At least I didn't think it was. I'm pretty sure that's a general consensus, is story is kind of mediocre on the whole. Though one thing I will say, the characters are some of the goofiest fucking idiots I have had the both pleasure in some cases and displeasure of having to experience in a game. Like, they are so full of character, just whether you you know, find them annoying or not is whether you'll like them or not. Because there are certain characters, Pandreo, I know a lot of people like him. I couldn't stand him and his howling. I just no. But then you have someone like Yunaka, who is just really fun and also a pretty interesting character on the whole. I think Yunaka is one of the better characters in the game, at least in my opinion. She isn't who I S-supported, but, you know, I enjoyed her character quite a bit. She was fun. And also, deep in shit, bro. But in reality, she isn't. She's just, you know, got a surface level trait and then, like, a little bit of depth beneath that. Hiya, papaya, boys. Fuck, I should have said that at the start of the video. Whatever. You can, this is very rambly. Yeah, the characters on the whole, yeah. I'd say more fun and more enjoyable than not. There are a few fringe cases of characters I didn't enjoy. Pandreo. And they are absolute goofballs. They go from 0 to 100 like it's nothing. If you've paid attention to the game on Twitter, you'll have seen some support conversations. If you play it yourself, you'll understand what I mean. Particularly with Alir, the main character, you know, I was expecting a hell of a lot more Avatar worship, but outside of a select few characters, there's not as much, and it's more Alir reacting to a character doing their gimmick and being like, what the fuck? Nah, bro. That's just, you don't need to do that. Or stuff like that. Which is interesting the first couple times, and then you're like, yeah, okay, I get it. Hee. But yeah, supports, overall, not bad. Now, I'm going to delve into spoilers from this point on, so, you know, bear that in mind if you decide to continue listening. I'll give you a second if you are, and putting it on in the background to just switch off and go about your day. Thank you for watching. Leave a like, comment, sub, YouTube algorithm stuff. You know what to do. Would appreciate it. Not that I make this type of content very often, but either way. So, the story in detail. So as I mentioned earlier, not reusing maps, but it kind of does. Well, in the paralogs for the emblems, which you use to increase their bond level from 10 to 20, which gives you access to more skills, which you get access to these paralogs for the emblem rings you have on you after chapter 10, well 11 when you lose all of them, bar 2, or 4 if you've got the DLC. Look, I like Fire Emblem, right? I bought the DLC, deal with it. What was my point? Oh yeah, and the emblem paralogs are based on maps from those characters' games. So, for example, Lynn's is on the Sakai map with all the huts, if you've played Blazing Sword. Roy's is on the map where Binding Blade was sealed, if you remember, if you played Binding Blade. Where was Ike's again? I can't remember what Ike's was, or Micaiah's, because I haven't played those games. But they're relevant places for them. You get the thing. Lucina's is the Veroxy Arena, you know, where you fight her in Awakening when she is Master Marth. Any other more notable ones? Erica's is the Dark Temple, where you fight Formontis, the Demon Lord in Sacred Stones, etc., etc., etc. You know, you get the gist at this point, and I think that's really cool. It is pretty cool. You know, I did enjoy that. Yes, the conversations leading into the maps was, you know, just basically the same old shit for all of them. It was, oh wow, this place looks like a place I remember. But it isn't that place. Wow, let me give some exposition about my game. Let's fight Alir and our bond will grow stronger. And that's basically how all of them go. It's, you know, expected. I know that all of them go this way because I did every single one of them. I literally cleared every single chapter, every single paralogue. Well, obviously I cleared every chapter because I beat the bloody game. I didn't need to preface that, but I did every single paralogue. You know, I got everything out of it that I could in my first playthrough. Probably don't need to do that. You probably get just as much enjoyment out of it if you didn't do it all in one playthrough and did, you know, multiple playthroughs and did different things here and there, because this game has great replayability. Probably should have said that earlier, but whatever. No more story-focused spoilers. Let's talk about some of the things I egregiously hate, shall we, about the story? So, spoilers for Fire Emblem Fates, very briefly. They are pretty big spoilers, because they're for, like, right at the end of the game, but Fates is also pretty old, so deal with it. And you're not missing much if you know what the story entails. But right at the end of Fates, there's a fake-out death with Corin, the main character. And I didn't like it when they did the fake-out death in Fates. So, it should stand to reason that I really, really didn't like it when they did a fake-out death in Engage with the main character, Aaliyah, in Chapter 21. And then brought him back to life. And then killed him again at the end of Chapter 22. And brought him back to life again, like 45 seconds later. Yes, he's brought back to life with pre-established things that we have been told about or hinted at earlier in the story. So I'm not calling it, you know, an ass pull or bullshit. It's just, you know, I don't like the fake-out deaths, especially not when they're back to fucking back. Like, it just doesn't carry any weight. It felt unnecessary, and also it made me really not enjoy Chapter 22, because, you know, I'd had a really annoying bit of story where Elite died and got brought back to fucking life, and then I had a chapter that I just found tedious because it was just kind of a pain. And then immediately fucking after that, Elite was killed again, and then immediately brought back to life. I was like, this is just egregious. Why did this have to happen this way? But it does. Gotta deal with it. And then Elite becomes a fucking emblem, because sure, he is the Fire Emblem. Roll credits, name drop, hee hee. In all fairness, though, I do kind of find it pretty cool that we are the Fire Emblem. You know, because Aaliyah is the insert character, the main character. Though he's not silent, unlike, you know, I guess Robin and Corin weren't silent, but Byleth was. Yeah, Byleth was. But, you know, we, the main character, you, if you want to call them your name, are the Fire Emblem. Pretty corny, but at the same time, kind of cool. It's not the first time that the Fire Emblem series has used the Fire Emblem as a, you know, a plot element. Look at Awakening, look at, you know, the Fire Emblem 1, 3, and their remakes. And it's probably mentioned in some other games as well. But again, off the top of my head, I don't know. Yeah, but that particular bit of the story was painfully egregious. And it also felt like the last handful of chapters, like the last, last 5 to 6, were flooded with, like, way more dialogue than earlier points in the game. And it did feel like they dragged a little bit at the end, and it was a bit tedious in the final stretches, you know, to go through the cutscenes. But hey, at least the voice acting is alright. Should have probably talked about the voice acting earlier on, given that, you know, I like voice acting. Oh well, here it is what it is. The voice acting is alright. The voice actors themselves are really good. The delivery of the lines, hit and miss. Probably a director choice, you know, the direction they were given. You can't blame the voice actor for that most of the time. But I digress. Yeah, so overall, story has points I really dislike. It is really cheesy. Obviously, parent characters, you know, if you know anything about Fire Emblem, they don't last long, like, at all. They just don't do well for themselves. It's just an unfortunate trait of being a parent character. You'll know if you know. On the whole, story wasn't where it was at. I would probably put it on around the same level as Fates. It feels very Fates-like. Somewhere between Fates and Awakening, story-wise, I'd say. Because it's trying to... I saw a brilliant... I think it was a tweet about this where it's basically trying to capture... A lot of modern Fire Emblem is trying to capture the bottled lightning that Awakening had, and just isn't doing it as well. Awakening is where I got into the series. Yes, I'm an Awakening baby. Or, well, now that Awakening is like, what, 10 years old, or however old it is. Not really a baby anymore, am I? But Awakening had, you know, this big effect. It saved the franchise. Oh, yeah. And so, obviously, they're going to try and emulate what Awakening did. And some parts are effective, some parts less so. But if you look at Engage, it sold really bloody well. So, who's complaining? I don't know what that point really was, but it's just what came to mind. It's a very rambly video, as you'd expect. But yeah, on the whole, I really enjoyed Fire Emblem Engage. It was a good game in terms of gameplay. Story was middling at best, but that didn't take away from the experience. I really enjoyed playing it, and that's, at the end of the day, what matters. I would rather take something like Engage or Fates, where the gameplay is so good, over Three Houses, where the story is genuinely really fucking good most of the time. And even when it's not at its best, it's still not bad. But in Three Houses gameplay, I just... Playing it again, I beat my first run, I beat one route, and I just did not have it in me to play another one because, you know, the gameplay loop, it drags a little bit. The gameplay in Three Houses is its biggest weakness, and it's good to see that Engage, at the cost of the story, has some impeccable gameplay, and I prefer that over a good story at the end of the day in my Fire Emblem, because I play it because they're fun. If I wanted the story on its own, I could just watch a Let's Play. But anyway, that's my thoughts, you know, just after beating the game. Not very nuanced, rambly, a mess. Been talking for 20 minutes and it barely makes any sense. But anyway, if you stuck it this far, cool, you're a G. Let me know your thoughts on my thoughts, or your thoughts on the game if you played it. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say here. I'll probably think of some other points to make, and I might tweet them out as and when. But anyway, I've been Animosity, you've been you, and I hope to catch you all next time for another video. Ta-ta! For now.